When the Malaysia once entered circulation in 1967, it was created for a very specific role. It wasn't designed to be admired, studied, or remembered. It was designed to move quickly, quietly, and endlessly through daily life. Its purpose was simple: to exist just long enough to complete a transaction, then disappear from attention. At the time, Malaysia was shaping its modern monetary system. Everyday purchases depended on small denominations. Markets, roadside stalls, transport fares, and neighborhood shops all relied on exact change. The 1 sen wasn't important on its own, but without it, the system slowed down. That made it essential. Even if no one thought of it that way, people handled this coin constantly. It passed through hands that never paused to look at it. It was dropped into pockets, scooped from counters, slid across worn surfaces, and mixed with other coins thousands of times over its life. Each exchange lasted only seconds, but the repetition was endless. The 1 sen lived in motion. Because it was so common, it was invisible. People didn't consider where it came from or how long it would remain in use. It was accepted, spent, and forgotten almost immediately. That forgetfulness defined its entire existence. The metal used for the coin reflected that mindset. It was chosen for practicality, not permanence. The goal was efficiency, mass circulation, and affordability. No one expected this coin to survive decades of handling. It wasn't built to resist wear, only to function long enough to be replaced, and it wore quickly. Every fall onto concrete, every scrape against keys, every collision with other coins slowly removed detail from its surface. The edges softened. The designs faded. The coin didn't age slowly or gracefully. It aged through pressure and repetition. Most people never noticed the change. The loss happened gradually, almost invisibly. A coin that looked fine yesterday looked the same today, even though something had already been taken from it. That is how circulation works. During the late 1960s and 1970s, the 1 sen was everywhere. It paid for small goods, balanced prices, and filled the gaps in everyday transactions. It was handled by millions of people who never imagined a future where it would matter. Saving it didn't make sense. It wasn't old. It wasn't unusual. It didn't feel important. Coins that are saved usually announce themselves in some way. This one never did. As years passed, the role of the 1 sen slowly began to change. Inflation didn't remove it suddenly. Instead, it reduced its relevance. Prices shifted. Transactions rounded differently. The coin remained in circulation, but it mattered less with each passing year. People stopped waiting for it, stopped noticing it, stopped caring if it was returned. The coin became background noise in everyday life, and when something becomes background noise, it becomes easy to lose. Some of these coins were officially withdrawn over time. Others were gathered, recycled, or melted down as monetary systems adjusted. Many more were simply lost. Dropped into places they never returned from. Forgotten in containers that were later emptied without care. There was no moment when people decided to preserve them. There was no warning that their disappearance would matter. History didn't signal their importance in advance. Most of the Malaysia 1 sen coins followed the path they were designed for. They circulated until they wore down, then they vanished. That wasn't an accident. It was the outcome of their purpose. What remains today exists because something interrupted that cycle. A coin that kept moving rarely survived. A coin that stopped, even briefly, had a chance. Maybe it slipped into storage and stayed there. Maybe it was set aside unintentionally. Maybe it avoided circulation long enough to escape destruction. Whatever the reason, its survival wasn't planned. That randomness is what gives it meaning now. These remaining coins don't represent wealth or rarity in the traditional sense. They represent ordinary life. Repeated routines. Millions of small moments that were never recorded. Each worn surface reflects constant handling. Each faded detail marks time spent in use. The coin doesn't tell a single story. It carries traces of countless transactions, none of which were important on their own. That we often assume that history preserves what matters. In reality, history preserves what people choose to protect. Most everyday objects are consumed by use and then erased. The Malaysia 1 sen shows how quickly something essential can disappear once it feels insignificant. This coin wasn't a failure of design. It was a circulation mistake. It was allowed to move endlessly, without pause, without rest. Objects that never rest don't survive long enough to be remembered. What we see today is incomplete. The remaining coins are worn, softened, and quiet. They don't demand attention. They don't shine. They simply exist as evidence that everyday life once depended on them. That is why this coin feels different now, not because it was special at the time, but because it was never meant to last long enough to be seen this way. The Malaysia 1 sen was not saved. It was not protected. It was not chosen for preservation. And yet, a few remain. They remain not as symbols of importance, but as reminders. Reminders that most of the past disappears without ceremony. That routine erases more than time ever could. That survival is often the result of interruption, not intention. This coin survived because something stopped it from moving, and sometimes, that is the only reason anything survives at all.